Yes, hello. I am James Rowlands, and today is WNR498. It's Impact Catch Up. Just a quick one today. Don't worry, everybody. It is just me. The team will be back this weekend because, of course, we've got AEW Full Gear coming up. And let's just remember, everybody, in 2 weeks' time, episode 500. Can you believe it? If you've been here since day one, it is just unbelievable that we got here, starting 4th of May 2015, 8 years, 500 episodes. I mean, 500, we've probably done more than 500 we were really weird the first couple of 100 episodes where it was like part 1 and part 2, but for me, it's just been great. And it is weird again doing this one today and kind of doing it by myself because obviously, as you know, when I started, it was with Dan and Dwayne and then obviously Jared and then things changed around the 350 mark for the last 150 episodes ago with, of course, Jaxie and Monty, and then a year later with G. It's been a bit different, It's like it feels weird now not doing a show kind of without them, and that's kind of one of the reasons as well. For the past few years, there's been a lot of wrestling on there, and especially with the Double Up podcast in the next couple of years, we will still do WWE and AEW, and of course, I mean NXT Update has been going since Joe Watch, Excuse me if you do hear me taking a second here. But the thing is, with NXT, we will keep doing that. We'll do prediction leagues. I'm hoping to do more kind of classic stuff next year. Maybe, some old shows because I really, really enjoyed SummerSlam 1992. Excuse me, especially when you, get the reaction that we do from that, as I know, we've watched a lot on this podcast. 498 shows is quite a long time. But the reason is that I don't really like, let me little secret. I don't really like doing podcasts by myself. It's very rare, Like I said, the 498 episodes. I'd probably say, 15, 20 at stretch. And that's not just including just clips, as we did do. I say we as a collective, after kind of Dan left. But it's interesting, to kind of think about it and think about the changes. So me personally, I don't like doing them by myself. So the question is then with Impact, because I watch it, I'm not going to force the other guys, is to whether get, and if you do get someone else in just to watch Impact, then of course the way the podcast is and the team is at the moment, do you then add them to the team? Another voice, of course, to do it, which is fine. But, at the moment, of course, we had Shay a couple of weeks ago, who was fantastic. And at this point as well, I'd just like to thank everybody that's ever been a part of the podcast. Of course, where it should be a list like Francis Wright, and of course Select Match Pod, were one of our favourites to work with. Of course, Henry or Chokeslam Report, as you will know him, and of course others that I am forgetting right now. So I think with Impact it will kind of come to an end, but I'm thinking today's is just going to be kind of just notes. What I'll do next month is have an Impact year in review, which will include Impact 1000. I'm still trying to work on, believe it or not, this New Japan one that I've got, which is all the New Japan American events, along with Strong when it was a thing, and of course other bits like Impact and New Japan the Multiverse are both shows there as well, and of course other bits and pieces. I'm hoping, if we can, depending on how busy December is to do a New Japan kind of year end wrap up, because I know there's still Destruction to talk about, and Wrestle Kingdom comes right in the new year. And even weird, because usually on the podcast as well as we've done it, the year end kind of wraps things up and there's like a little break. But obviously this year with Wells End happening, we're going to find out the year end predictions a week later than normal. I'm sure I have another pay-per-view in January. We've got Wrestle Kingdom and of course Royal Rumble. We are going to be doing a Christmas special as well in December. There's no doubt in my mind that we're getting that done. I know we didn't do Halloween this year, but I think Halloween's a little bit different because you kind of run out of ideas, I'm not going to lie. That's one of the things after doing it for nearly 500 episodes is that you do cross a lot of ground. And this is another thing about talking about old wrestling is that you just don't want to keep reviewing like WrestleMania 17. We know that's the best WrestleMania, but I think that's twice now we've done it on the show, so we've got to be careful with that. But it's going to be good times ahead, big times ahead. Like I said, the next couple of weeks will be fun, and of course the Christmas special year end, and with everything going on there. But today, we just want to kind of catch up with a few things of impact. Story, of course, will be spoken about in more depth next month. It was really, really fun. We had Trinity versus Mickey James, who were excellent. This was a great match. Of course, the veteran Mickey versus Trinity, who has come on leaps and bounds. I was Impact, probably one of the best decisions that she's made. No, but we had what is now of the year, I think. This is my match of the year. Will Ospreay versus Mike Bailey. This match was crazy, honestly. Like, it's probably one of my favourite things. It just built and built and built. The only thing maybe year-end awards that might affect it for me is the fact how many people watched it. And not only that, but no title on the line. And Will Ospreay came over to Impact for 3 matches. Mike Bailey, Eddie Edwards. I don't know. I just don't get Eddie Edwards. I know he's been there a while for Impact, but I just there's better talent around. Put him in there with Chris Bay or, Ace Austin or someone like that, one of the Rascals. But, still a good match, but, not what Mike Bailey was. And, of course, what we've got coming up next. And, again, it just felt a bit Will Ospreay was, I don't know, a lot of people complain about AEW treatments in New Japan. But, New Japan's a star and making sure he doesn't lose. I know it's Will Ospreay, don't get me wrong, but we'll talk about that in a second. We're going to go New Japan first because I want to speak about New Japan as well. There's a lot to catch up on, but it's really weird that a few years ago, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago now maybe, we were doing the Magnificent 7, which was the 7 best wrestlers in Britain, and we were going to follow them. Now, off the top of my head, because I haven't written down, but I'm pretty sure it was Zack Sabre Jr., Will Ospreay, Pete Dunne, Drew McIntyre. I've got a feeling Pac was on there as well. We had Marty Scurll, and I cannot for the life of me remember who the last one was, and it's gonna really do my head in. But at this moment in time, we're just gonna have to move on. But anyway, we had those 6 and the one forgotten one. Marty Scurll should be the one we forgot about there, to be fair. I'm not gonna lie. But Zack Sabre Jr. Will Ospreay have been killing it this year. Zack Sabre Jr. His run as TV champion, or whatever you want to call it, strong champion, has been fantastic. I think, say, 15 title defences now. And Will Ospreay, again, not to ruin year-end awards, but he is my wrestler of the year without a doubt. Royal Quest 3, it was a real bummer not to be there, but I was busy on October 14th, where it took place. Of course, we were there last year for Royal Quest 2. The match itself was fantastic. What I really liked about it was the British style that came out. Ospreay showing that he can wrestle, maybe not on the ground as well as Zack, but both of them have got a kind of welder sport learnings, which is really, really good to see. match. Like I said, Will Ospreay getting the win. Move on to Lone Star Shootout. You know, New Japan is a gift that keeps on giving. Zack Sabre Jr. versus Mike Bailey, November 10th. Zack was talking about the TV title, wanting 20 title defenses. One of the things that got me there was how tall he was, or taller than Bailey. I didn't notice it in the Ospreay-Bailey match, but I noticed it here. This was great, but in a different way, because there's a real clash of styles here. You know, with Ospreay and Bailey, they can go the fast pace and do that. Obviously, with Will and Zack, they've got that kind of British wrestling style that keeps them together. With this, it was so good. Zack basically catching Bailey in midair. The finish as well was gruesome, with Zack dislocating Mike's finger. Back to Impact. Turning Point, Trinity versus Jenna Pratt. So, of course, Turning Point, another bum was UK. Hoping Impact come back next year to actually kind of complete the set. It was really disappointing not to get there. Just out of reach for us this year. Of course, we've already, as a WNR podcast, booked tickets for WWE show in April because, of course, we're not good enough to get a premium live event anymore. Let's not forget. It is France and Germany's turn. So we are not even getting a Raw or SmackDown, but it'd be nice to take the girls there to show them the O2, considering I've been going there since, my word, trying to think, 2010. I think it's the first time I went to the O2. So, 13 years now? And back then, obviously Raw was the number one show, which has changed since then. John Cena was a star. Who else did we have? I think, what I remember from it was the SmackDown show afterwards. The dark match was Rey Mysterio versus CM Punk, and that was really, really fun. I'm not going to lie. And they wrestled like 25 minutes as well. They really did put on a show. That was before Punk got his head shaved, storyline-wise. So we're hoping Impact does come back. The crowd in Newcastle for Turning Point was great. So fair play for Impact to doing that. It's the same thing with Royal Quest. You know, there's sort of a few empty seats. Decided to do one night over two. So maybe, you know, they'll try it again either next year or might leave it a couple of years. Or joint show, you know, New Japan versus Impact in the UK. Come on, guys. I'm saying it right now. It's there if you want it. Trinity versus Jenna Pratt. So anyway, you know, Pratt's so good, as we talked about, and Trinity as well put another performance against Pratt. So I'm a little bit worried about Deanna because her contract is rumoured to be coming up. But it's weird because how wrestling changes, and the biggest changes that we've had since the podcast started was even like couples in wrestling. You know, you had a few couples here and there, but it kind of wasn't, you know, well known. It was only really like the Matt Hardy, Edge and Lita thing that kind of blew it up. And obviously the talk about CM Punk came through. But, you know, since then, so, you know, with these couples, Steve Macklin and Deanna Pratt are together in Impact. So would they leave? You know, and Impact's got quite a few, you know, even Jonathan Gresham and Grace. So it'd be interesting to see what the decision is. Is Parazzo good enough to AEW or WWE? Bitch, please. The knockout division in itself is the main reason I watch Impact. You know, it is not for Heath Slater or Bully Ray. It is for these women. Will be Trinity, Jenna Pratt. So, you know, you've got the Master Slamovich, you've got Killer K, you've got Tasha Steeles, you know, all these great talents. Rosemary, who is kind of changed character at the moment, but still, you know, there's so much depth there. Yeah, and hopefully, this is the one thing I'm hoping with the changes that are going to come to Impact, which we're going to talk about in a second. Of course, that the division needs to be looked after and nurtured because that has been such a positive. So we move on Impact, November 16th, Will Ospreay, Josh Alexander. Now, I've got to tell you, it wasn't as good as the Mike Bailey match. I'm not going to lie. Don't know what it was. Again, maybe predictability. And as I was mentioning, Will Ospreay, again, beating another Impact wrestler. And this is the guy, you know, at Bound for Glory, Alexander did come up short. which we will talk about, like I said, next month. But this match with Ospreay was great. I just wonder if Alexander is maybe a step slower due to just coming back from injury at the moment, trying to get that level again. Because the way he was wrestling a couple of years ago was world class, the same as Mike Bailey was last year, the same as Will Ospreay is this year. These are two perfect wrestlers. It reminded me a lot of like Chris Jericho versus like Chris Benoit, or like a Dean Malenko type. The kind of the ground game versus the high flyer, but both showing what they can do. Just really, really good stuff.
King of Sports, New Japan Pro Wrestling.
Right, I think I pressed, and I don't know what happened. I apologise for that. Nice advert though for King of Sports, I suppose. We talk about TNA. Who knows what can happen on the podcast? Microphone issues, even by myself. We're going to talk about TNA because TNA is coming back. What does it mean? For me, TNA was a pretty big thing back in the day. Like I said, I'm not one of those who didn't. I watched WWE. I could afford Sky, which was quite lucky. But Challenge was one of those things where I couldn't afford Sky in my room. So then Challenge came in, which was on like kind of Freeview TV, and then you can have Impact Wrestling. I think what was the bigger thing for me, weirdly enough, was the kind of Wrestle Talk that they had afterwards, where they'd have a guest and a couple of hosts and a couple of guests talking about Impact Wrestling and there's some stuff in WWE. But I think that's the kind of impetus, especially kind of listening to a couple of podcasts around that time and thinking, do you know what? I think I watch enough wrestling to kind of know what I'm talking about. As I hope people listening now, again, I'm not saying I'm an expert, but with hours watched wrestling, and other people, that frustrated me when I thought, no, this. When they didn't know the match, didn't know the person, or didn't know the seventh wrestler, as I did earlier. But, and it kind of makes you think it. And anybody listening here, this is the impetus to go on and do something. I never ever thought when we started that it would be 500 episodes. I knew it would be a while. To be fair, I probably thought it would be 4 at the beginning. But it's weird to think. And like I said, with TNA back in the day, to be able to watch those matches, and of course the match that I remember more than anything else, I think it's No Surrender, but people may say I'm wrong, called Samoa Joe versus Chris Daniels versus AJ Styles, which is the greatest triple threat match I've ever watched. But I even enjoyed like the Aces of 8 storyline and stuff like that, so I was quite an Impact fan back in the day. Of course, when it was off Challenge, you kind of go off it a little bit, and it was weirdly enough a couple of years ago that I was like, do you know what? I can access Impact with the app now. Let's go and kind of check it out. And I did. And I've been watching it ever since. The specials are good. Impact always puts on a show. But I thought they were doing something good. And I don't know if the TNA name change is going to be a bigger business as they think it is. It's kind of weird to think that TNA maybe as it had 20 years ago, but is it a step back? And I worry about the knockout division. I worry about quality wrestling and seeing more kind of slapstick or more edgier, attitudey type characters, because I think Impact has got some of the best wrestlers on the planet. And the problem is there are so many great wrestlers on the planet as well. But I think with Impact, it's something that they're going to look at. They've obviously they're close their crew is and how they are together, so it'll be interesting times. Like I said, we'll see what happens with TNA with Alex Shelley leading it. I mean, he faces Moose at Hard to Kill, which will be interesting as well. But we'll leave it there, because like I said, it's only going to be a quick one today. I can't believe it's taken a 498. The old James would have been furious, but we've done it. Only 2 more episodes left for 500. And 500 is coming in 2 weeks' time. If you want a more in-depth Impact review, like I said, next month will be the Impact Year in Review. So that's it. Don't forget, across all social media, Twitter at the WNR Podcast, I'm at the WNR JR. You can find the entire WNR team on a Twitter banner. WNR also on Facebook and Instagram, across all Google platforms. So just email the WNR Podcast at gmail.com. YouTube, WNR Podcast, with all its clips and podcasts go at the same time on YouTube as do SoundCloud on your phone. Also Spotify and iTunes, where you can download, subscribe, rate, and review there. So that's it. Next episode, AEW Full Gear. And no spoilers, but I am going to have a shit-eating grin through the entire episode. Until then, I've been James Rowlands. Thanks for listening, everybody, and bye.